There's military bases on Mars. There's military bases on the moon. We never stop going to the moon. It is a disgusting lie and a cover-up, and I can prove it. This is one of the most incredible physical evidences of an alien man working at the Pentagon. And there's a group that are all military, physical human military, and they're known as the Galactic Federation of Worlds. The aliens I tell you about, they are as physical as you and I. They are people. Jesus's message was to tell us that we are the most amazing beings. And the reason why the ETs, some of them find us so fascinating, is because we possess way more ability in areas that they don't.
We are joined today by our guest, Dani Henderson. Dani is a clairvoyant medium and spiritual therapist. She is also an alien and paranormal experiencer and author, as well as the founder of the Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection event, which showcases speakers who discuss the true history of our planet, solar system, existence of extraterrestrials, and exposure of hidden healing and propulsion technologies. We are looking forward to hearing more about all of that and meeting her today. So welcome, Dani. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Tracy. Good to meet you, ladies.
Good to meet you also. We're excited about this. So, Dani, I want to ask you, I know, or I understand you've had paranormal experiences as a small child. So can you maybe start by sharing some of those experiences with us?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many to go into, but like a lot of children, who are born awake. And I actually believe that every child is born awake on some level, meaning seeing, sensing, whether it's clairvoyant, clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance. And then, whatever happens during that first 7 years is often where we will either retain a strength of skills, certain skills, psychic abilities, natural metaphysical skills, or they'll be shut down and we'll learn to block them, which is the path for a great many amount of adults to this day. But somehow we always know that something happened. And so people like me, when I come out and I share many of my experiences, I get so many messages, people saying, oh my God, that happened to me. I'd forgotten, or I was too scared to say something. I never had the courage. And, so I'm a good kind of sounding board for people in that way. And I don't know whether we should say anything, but again, anyone can say they've got spiritual abilities, clairvoyant, mediumship, contactee, but we just had a moment between the three of us.
We did. You shared about what you were getting from us, and you zeroed in, I believe it was my dog, because I've had a lot of feelings about his passing, and it was very comforting to hear you say that he's here with me. So I really appreciated hearing that.
Yeah, it was a beautiful moment between the three of us. It creates an energetic bonding where you can feel safer, but also it raises awareness in this kind of triangulation that we have, because you two both have similar experience or similar spiritual abilities that are definitely awakening more and more, and they can't not when you're on this path. So back to experiences. The very first, I remember my birth, which people say is impossible. It's not. It doesn't matter what kind of brain neurology personnel say, well, at this stage this happens and that stage that happens. That's just a guideline, but really we know, those of us that do have that long-term memory. And I remember being born, and when I was born, my mother is alive, but she actually died giving birth to me, and they thought I was the one that was going to die because I was a high-risk birth for whatever reason. And so we were in a different town, and there was a machine there that, had I got into trouble, would have kept me alive. So that was the plan. But she actually died and then left her body and had a whole near-death experience. And then they brought her back into her body. And that was my first memory of being roughly handled and seeing the lights. And then I remember the green Victoriana walls and the black and white tiled flooring, and being rushed and being roughly handled, and these imprinted on me, these memories. And then later, and I was just a few months old, I was apparently, I've never stopped talking, but a really advanced talker. By 19 months, I was fully, in dialogue, and apparently had a very posh accent, like I'd come from somewhere very, highborn. The family used to joke about it. But I remember this absolutely stunningly beautiful presence, very, very tall, like 9 foot tall, of course, as an infant. I don't have, I've met him since. But at the time, I remember this very tall being with this very big head and these beautiful eyes and this kind of light brown skin, who emits a humming. It's a humming frequency. And he was putting me gently back into my crib like that. It was kind of at that tempo. And I remember sitting back and feeling the wooden bars behind me, again, to imprint the physicality of this experience. And then he backed away, but he doesn't walk. His name is Annex, and he is what we call an Egoroth, 9 foot tall, beautiful. And to know exactly where he's from, if you go outside and you look at Orion's belt and you go 1, 2, 3, he's the middle star. He's from the middle star. That star system is where this particular Egoroth comes from. And anyway, the next thing is that there was a little slither of light under the bedroom door. And then my mother walks in and she's like, oh, she's still awake. Like, I remember her saying that to my dad. Oh, she's still awake. Then she picked me up, put me on her hip, and took me outside in the garden. And it's dark. I'm this tiny baby and it's dark. And I remember looking at the stars, but the confusion of where's the light? I don't understand. I don't want to be on your hip. I want to be back with him. I want to go back upstairs. And then, so that was another, but then all through childhood, I could always feel the children that were being harmed or abused, or I had the sad children or the parents. I would look at the parents. I was the kid that some parents would look at and go, oh God, she's odd. What's wrong with her? Because I would look at them and I would know. I would know they were. They could never hide because frequency doesn't lie. It really doesn't lie. And so many children are so, so I'd say to parents out there, if your children tell you about someone that they just don't like, they listen to them. If they tell you there's something in their room, there's something under the bed, there's something in the closet, then be a superhero and beat the shit out of the clothes in the closet and throw shoes under the bed. Like, don't dismiss them just because you were dismissed. Because we have to remember, we hold those memories and traumas in the body. They're rarely healed. We just go through life and sometimes we remember, sometimes we don't. But, we've got to honor our children and empower them because they are way more powerful than our generation, right now. Yeah, so it's been a never, ever ending, continual journey. Although when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I was so fed up with seeing the dark, the angels, the demons, the good aliens, the negative aliens. And I got to a point where I've just overwhelmed. Nobody believed me. You can't tell anyone. And it got to the point where I just used to numb out cigarettes, alcohol, dancing, clubbing, staying out till 4, going to work at 9. It will kill me now. I could never do that. I find these ways to handle life and just kind of push through. And so that's what I did. And then it came back again with a vengeance, late 20s, early 30s. And it was like, right, it is go time, Dani. It is go time. There's no way that's turning off. And it's just kept on, radiating and growing and having more experiences. And, I've done thousands of readings and hundreds of paranormal investigations. I do love doing those. Me and my friend Nikki Allen are about to do together. She's the great clairvoyant medium, British psychic who's speaking at the conference, which we'll talk to. Again, another long-term tenure. She's the seventh child of the seventh son. There's kind of a long ancestral pattern in some psychics' lives, and she's one of those. So you should get her on your channel. She's absolutely amazing.
We would love to. I would love to have her join us.
Yeah, so that just kind of brings you kind of up to date. I hope that was a good answer to your question.
Yeah, it sounds like you were a starseed. Would you say that's about right?
It's an interesting label, starseed. I can definitely remember being other physicalities. Let me put it that way. I can also remember being other people on Earth in different timelines. Some people call that past lives. Absolutely. And I also believe that many of us who are back here now at a time such as this, a time of ascension, that we have also experienced lives as, different animals, different aspects, a lot of different avatars, males, females, different colors. I truly believe that because I remember that. And all the people that I've seen and read for and interviewed myself over the years, I truly believe that to be an actual fact of the biological form that we are in, that inhabits all of the years of cellular memory, whether it's cellular memory in this body, in this timeline, or other ones. We come in with, I believe, every past life, and their signature markers that's set down the whole way through this lifetime to help us remember the magnificent beings that we are.
It just breaks my heart when I hear people talk about having this gift and then being ostracized for it. That's got to be so confusing as a kid, which leads me to, did you grow up religious, and was that confusing given these gifts?
So I, unfortunately, was introduced very young to the nut job element, in my opinion, of Christianity, which was the intense Pentecostal evangelical fire and brimstone, where you are taught you are a sinner, which is to me a despicable harm to all children who are now adults, many of us. It is not anything that came from love. And, Jesus, I believe, was a beautiful, benevolent being, because when I was 7, I met him in my bedroom with a host of angelics. And my bedroom, the things that would happen in there, it was always through this, mostly the same particular wall in this house. The house we lived on was haunted. So were all the other houses, shitty houses in a shitty part of town where they'd thrown up, you call them the projects in America, really low income families. And they built these terrible houses in World War II, I think it was. But they built, the thing is, people say, oh yeah, but the house holds its energy, but people forget about the land. The land these places are built on, there's energy on the land. And so the land was a battleground. There'd been actual battles and massacres on this particular land going back centuries. And lucky me, that's where I grew up, And so when you have an ability, I believe that we emit a frequency that spirits can see, especially earthbounds. And earthbounds are those who die, wake up knowing they're dead, and they're like, I'm not going to the light, or I'm too scared to go to the light. Or if they've got religious programming, they're like, I'm going to be judged. God love them. There's so many of those I've helped to the light. So they just pop through my house, in my bedroom, through the wall, follow me, sit next to me at the breakfast table, and my brothers are here and they're not seeing it. They can't smell death. They never got pushed down the stairs violently so many times like I did. So many times.
Wow.
My mom would go, not again. Oh yeah, they come for you. They came for me. Because the land was so vile, dark attracts dark. And because it was so many problem families, alcoholism, drug abuse, physical, it was the 70s. So beating up your kids, slapping your wife about, no problem. That's what it was in England at that time. And so that creates frequency. It continues to harness stress, anxiety, vibratory resonance. So of course it's a pull. It's like a black hole. It pulls everything dark in. So it was pretty terrifying. So I see Jesus this one night. I used to hold my hand out, even though I was terrified, because I never knew what was going to come at night. My parents never believed me, ever. And this one night I was holding my hand out and I was crying. I was like, Jesus, please hold my hand. Please, please. I know you're real. I know you're real. And anyway, what happened was the light on the wall starts to glow. And I'm like, oh God, here it comes. There was always a hum that would come, not an annex hum, the Egoroth friend of mine, but a hum. And then this beatific happening, it just came through the light, and then it was beside me. And then there were all these beautiful beings, and some of them were winged, some of them weren't. Some of them had more like plasma fields as opposed to wings. We draw what we see, but we don't always know how to express what that is. So some had light fields, some had literal wings, and others had none. And there were 6 or 7 of them, masculine, feminine. It didn't really, and they were around something in the middle. And then everything shifted, and then they they parted. And it was him. It was him. It was the most amazing moment. So I knew, and he just beamed at me. I couldn't believe it. Wow, Jesus is beaming at me. And he's real, and I'm 7, and I'm seeing him. And so I couldn't wait to get to church and tell these 2 women who we considered the queens of the church. You know, they were the ones, they were the VIPs, the fur hats and the diamond brooches and the fur stoles. And I got to the door, and it was my turn to go in and for them to say hello to me. And I saw Jesus and the angels in my room, and I thought they would be like agog, and they weren't. And they took me in a back room. She took her thumbs and she stuck them under my arms, and she lifted me off the ground with her thumbs under my arms. The pain was unimaginable. She said, "Evil child, Jesus would never come to you." And then she dropped me on the floor. I was such a skinny little runt of a child, and I couldn't believe the shock of these women I thought were all that in a bag of chips. And then the other one pinched me so hard. And I was just so traumatized that they did that. And I never told anybody till I wrote my book, of course. Blah, 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 blah. It's all in there. But,
I hope you name their names in there too.
I don't remember them. I just call them.
But still, you know.
Yeah, exactly. If I could, I would, believe me. But a lot of kids were shut down, but they judged where I lived, you know, the types of families that were there on that land, and it was the lower income, and so they made a decision. And so to answer your question, religion, yes. And then another time, similar age, they decided that I must have the devil in me, because why would I see Jesus? It must be a mimic of some sort. And so they took me on stage in front of 300 or 400 people, and they prayed the devil out of me. And it was one of the most awful moments. But I was so strong even then. And I remember their thickest hand shaking, and the big drama, and bless this child, and blah, 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 and the audience like, hallelujah, hallelujah. And the old women are almost passing out at the rapture of it. And then he just pushed me, and the 2-old bag just kind of caught me. You know, it's very dramatic. I remember standing up and looking out at a sea of white faces and saying, "Don't you dare cry, don't you dare cry, don't you dare cry, Dani, don't you dare cry." And I didn't. That was the only power I had in the moment. Yeah, so I managed to get out of that at like 15. Finally, it convinced my parents, like, just stop sending me there. It's just too horrendous. I can't deal, you know, and there are really bad people there, and there are dark entities in the audience, in the congregation. I can see them, and they know I can see them. You know, so so to answer the religious question, definitely.
Gosh, that's a lot to unpack, Dani. I mean, that you are alive and well after hearing what you went through as a kid is astonishing. I'm listening to that, like, mortified, like, oh my goodness.
I know, but the beauty of it for me, what I've come to learn is I remember everything, like photographic memory and sentience, the feeling of it. And it served me well, because I became a nanny, a nursery nurse. I looked after so many different children who weren't heard, who weren't seen. And because I was always so in touch with my inner child, it actually served me to be able to relate. It wasn't okay. Yeah. None of it was okay. But obviously it was a path that I came back to, you know, in this incarnation, that I will be able to reach as many children and help as many broken adults with their inner child healing, which to me is the greatest thing we can focus on, is the inner child healing. And that became my very biggest strength in my clinic.
You mentioned your book, so I wanted to ask you, you know, your book is titled Angels, Demons, and Aliens.
Yeah.
Could you share some of your experiences that you had with some of those entities?
Exactly. So just, you know, from what I've shared with you, I knew that it was really important to put a voice with someone, my voice, who's physically, and this is the important part, everything I'm teaching or sharing here was a physical interaction. It wasn't a meditation. It wasn't a guided journey. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a nightmare. It was a physical interaction with each one of these species, angels, demons, and aliens. And in the religion structure, unfortunately, they're so convinced, and they are absolutely so wrong, that angels and demons and aliens are mimics, or they're not, we're telling an adult, I saw an angel. They're like, no, that was a devil. No, oh my gosh. Or demons and aliens are the same thing. They are not the same thing, but sometimes they mimic and pretend to be, but they are not the same thing. And so this book, there's a couple of the stories I've told you about. Oh, there's the man with the bulging eyes. I'll tell you this story quickly. I was on television in Britain, and I used to do a live TV show. And so the public would call me or text me and ask me questions, whether it was for an angel card reading or whether it was for reading them. And they're not there. I'm just like feeling energy, showing how we can remotely connect to energy frequency. And they'd be like, oh my God, you were so right. That's what happened. Or because I'm a therapist, a therapy question or a relationship or whatever. This lady saw me. I call her Grace. That's not her real name. And she lived in a really posh part of London. And she called me and said, 2 people have recommended me. I've been watching you on your show. Please, something is in my house. It's haunting my daughter and I'm scared. My daughter is 10 years old. She's very psychic. And this thing is haunting her. I said to her, okay, don't tell me one more thing. And this is the thing as well. I don't want to know a single detail. And I've got videos on my YouTube channel, which is Dani Henderson, same name here. That's my YouTube channel. There's videos where I was taken in 2010 around London in England, blindfold, because they said, how can you stand out from other psychics or clairvoyants? I don't call myself a psychic. And I said, I don't know. I said, maybe if you blindfold me. I'd never done that in my life. I don't know why I said it. I regretted it the second I said it. I'm like, what were you thinking, Dani? You can just turn up like a normal person and just do a reading. No, you had to volunteer to go blindfold. No, it turned out I can read blindfold.
You had to up the ante a little bit.
I did. And they took me to a place and it was really, and I was blindfold. And I could feel, because you're using all your senses. But I imagined with my eyes covered that I would be feeling out here, reading out here. But I went inside and it is so quiet in there. For anyone to do that, take a sense away. And then you feel something else in your body. It's another leveling up of your own natural innate abilities. So anyway, so she's seen all this lady, Grace. And I said, I'll come to your house and tell me one more thing. I don't want to know. I don't need help. I know there's something in the house and it's terrorizing a child. I'm on my way. So after the studio show that day, I went to her house and she was a little tiny Romanian lady, like a little doll, beautiful woman. And she walked in, she said to me, oh my God, and the housekeeper let me in. But when I went in the building, it was a giant mansion that was now massive apartments. And she's on the penthouse on the very top. I was going up in the elevator and the whole of the building was shaking like this. I'm like, oh my God, this is a really bad frequency. This is really not good. This is wow. And I was kind of wishing I brought another team member with me, but I knew I was going to be all right, because you have to be careful doing an investigation. If you don't know what you're doing, you could be in danger yourself. You have to be really smart. I greet with her after the housekeeper lets me in, and she comes and she says to me, I was sitting at my drawing desk this morning and there's a wall in front of it. There's no plug around it. And this black smoke starts coming out the wall, and there was a stain there, and I touched it and it was sticky, and there was no wires, there was nothing at all that could give you a real logical explanation to what that was. She was really shaking, really disturbed, and then she's like, right, follow me. So I start following her down this long corridor, and it's got rooms all the way up. It was a gigantic penthouse apartment. It was huge. And then as I come to this doorway, I feel the pull, because our bodies are barometers. So I was sensing, I walk in this room and it's a child's bedroom. There's a little tiny bed and all these toys. And then to the left, there's a doorway that walked into a walk-in closet. There's a man standing there, a full-blown physical man with these huge brown bulging eyes, like googly eyes, like really massive. And he was standing, and I jumped because he bloody made me jump. And then he disappeared. And I'm like, oh. And I'm standing looking at where he was. And the woman, Grace, comes to the door and she's like, what are you doing in here? This is my daughter's room. And I said, oh, I felt energy in here. She goes, why? I wanted you to follow me. She goes, I said, I just saw a man standing in that doorway looking at your daughter's bed. And she literally fell on the floor crying. You saw him. You saw him. I said, of course I saw him. She goes, I was trying to trick you. I'm like, please don't waste our time doing that. Don't waste our time.
Wow.
Honestly. So anyway, so he did look terrifying. But then, to cut a long story short, when I tuned into him, it turned out that this man, when he was a little boy, he was a little street urchin. He was taken into that house that was a massive family home. They used to use him to shove him up the chimneys, to sweep the chimneys, because that's what you did in Britain. He was little tiny skinny kids to do that. And he lived and grew up in that house, and he was tortured mercilessly. When I went into the walk-in closet, I look up in the corner and there's a big square where the old-fashioned pulley system used to be. And there was even a cog with a chain on it, a part of a chain. And I look up and I went, oh, look at that. And Grace says, I've lived here 14 years. I've never seen that before. How could you miss it? How could you not see that? It's so funny what we don't see until anyway, when I linked into him, he said that there was a cook and a man in the kitchen in particular that used to force this little boy in this this little trap where they would shut the lid and then pull the lever and food would go up to each floor. And they'd leave him in there. And as he grew bigger and bigger, the reason why he has bulging eyes and brain damage is because of all the things they did to him. So he's growing into this huge adult body, but he's stopped growing. He's so traumatized. He had the mind of an 8-year-old child. And he was so sweet and he was so tender. At one point, I said to her, there were other things in the house. I got rid of them. But I had to get to this little boy, this man, and release him. He had to understand, you can't be here. You can't be asking a little girl to play with you. You're frightening her. You need to go home. And I said to her, Grace, we need to go up in the attic. We get up in the attic. And long story short, because the story's in the book, I walk down this hallway in the attic that's massive, bloody massive, really long. And at the very end, there was a dark room. And as I walk into the room with no lights, in the far corner was a glow. And there was an angelic standing there. And this angelic was standing over the body of that beautiful spirit, that disembodied, that poor. And he was lying in an embryonic way. And she was protecting him. As I started to walk further into the room, Grace said, what's that light? I said, can you see that? I said, that's an angel. And she's standing over this man's body. I said, she's going to help me release him. But then as I started to walk in, on my left-hand side, there was the regular outside wall. And then there was a 2-foot board. So imagine the outside wall and a gap and then a board running across about 2 foot. And as I started passing, my body picked up, my frequency energy picked up this growling, this stench, the stench of death. And I said, oh my God. And I looked down and there's all these little pots, blood, meat, feathers. And I turned to Grace and I said, oh my God, someone's done black magic in here. She said, yes. She goes, I've had the nuns in here. I've had psychics in here to try and get rid of him. And I said, that needs to go. And don't you touch it. And I'm not touching it. You do not mess with black magic. I said, but that is holding this boy. That is holding him in terror. He can't even leave, even if he wanted to at this point, until I got there, of course, and then connected with the angelic. But here's a lesson. The psychic rightly picked up that his resting place, or the place he hides, is in that corner. But she was yelling and screaming at him, go back to hell from where you came, go back to hell. He didn't need to be told that. He was a poor little lost soul, And there are people that they say they're psychics or they're clairvoyants, and they do much worse harm than good, quite frankly, Anyway, I stood with this angel and we prayed over this beautiful boy. And he went to the light. And there's other parts of that story too, but it is one of the dearest to me as well. A true story of how to confuse. But I will say this too. I don't want people to suddenly start having all this compassion for spirits because we don't share space with them. You do not share your home with a ghost. Don't do it. Don't be a martyr. Don't be a hero. Never use your body. And the most important thing, never, ever do a Ouija board.
That's
Where they
great
go.
advice. I don't even like to look at a Ouija board.
Yeah.
That's an incredible story. Wow. Which brings me to, so we've seen some angels. I guess we thought he was a demon, but probably not so much. But then the other entities. What about extraterrestrials? Have you had any interaction with them in the physical?
Oh, yeah.
Going
I
back
mean, the
to your-
first one, Annex, putting me back in my crib. I mean, he's a full-blown fifth density being, you know, from the middle star, the Orion system, you know, a really good, benevolent, beloved. And, you know, there is a beautiful Pleiadian man. And the thing is as well, that the aliens I tell you about, they are as physical as you and I. They are people. There are many, many, many millions and millions of other humans that live on other parts of our solar system. Oh, but NASA doesn't tell you that. Of course NASA doesn't. No one listens to NASA now anyway. They've been caught with the pants down. Liars, fakers, right? And if you want to go into the history of who founded NASA, have fun. Have fun. We're talking World War II, Project Paperclip, Operation High Jump, Secret Space Program. But NASA listened to Elena Danaan. And Elena Danaan has been bringing information on these alien beings I'm telling you about, because she's also had physical interaction with the same two. Although Elena is in touch with way many more than I am, but we are connected to the same team. And, you know, this other beautiful, loveliest bottom I've ever seen in my life on a man, and his name is Thor Hanaredian, and he is a military officer. He's a higher rank now. And he's part of a collective of other beautiful races of people, other humans, from, you know, Sirius, from the Pleiades. There's so many different planets within the Pleiades. And there's a group that are all military, physical human military, that are in their craft, and they're known as the Galactic Federation of Worlds. And I know it's hard for some people. They just can't bring it to themselves to recognize they've been lied to. We have proof, we have validation. The Galactic Federation of Worlds is a galactic collective federation of federated worlds that people live on physically, and they are all military assets that have a love and a care for our planet. They are working with the American government. Did you know the American government has its own space fleet?
I am aware of that. I think Tracy's, this is new information for Tracy, but
yeah, I'm not aware of that.
Galactic Federation of Worlds is not the same as another, as a psyop, a psychological operation that has come and been built to crush the real truth. The Galactic Federation of Light, because you can't federate light. You know, this is when you get all these people saying, I am the captain of the world and I am, yeah, okay, bye. But the Galactic Federation of Worlds has been proven to be working with the Earth Alliance. There are 42 countries who've signed accords. They're called the Artemis Accords, and they have admitted that they have their own space fleet. We have been reverse engineering anti-gravity craft for over 70 years. And 42 countries have admitted to having their own space fleets. This is a reality. Guys, go look it up on the internet. It's all out there. You can't hide it anymore. Yes. Solar Warden is the American space fleet, and it is gigantic. So the French, they have a space fleet, and one of their craft is known as the Solaris. So when the Solaris spacecraft leaves military airspace in France and it goes up, I've normally got the Earth behind me because we go lower orbit, middle orbit, and geostationary orbit, because I worked in the space industry for a long time in space manufacture. So I know a bit extra as well about the grounded, sensible part, you know, so I can really look at this and go, oh yeah, that's true, that's true. So the Solaris leaves French airspace and docks onto, in American airspace, in geostationary orbit or thereabouts, onto the Solar Warden, one of their craft. You know, it's really old news across the world in militaries, across the world in governments. And how dare they all decide, oh, you people, you're not ready. How rude is that? We are more than ready. And now, because we've got no trust and no respect at all for any system, me especially, absolutely not, we are giving the disclosure. We are telling all the truth. We are bringing it forward. We are proving it. We are landing it, because everybody deserves to know. But everyone can actually find every single thing I've said. You can find out for yourself. And that's the beauty of it now.
Well, I love everything you just said, because I have also been studying this for a long time. This is a subject I'm very passionate about, is bringing disclosure to the people. We just had a couple of guests recently that we interviewed on this topic, one being a specific lobbyist out of Washington, D.C. So it's interesting to watch the different angles that people are taking on this topic. Some people have to have the hard evidence, right? They want to see something right in front of them that's verifiable. Other people have more the ethereal edge, type of connection with some of these beings. And then there's the people in Washington who are lobbying for the laws to bring this information forward in a slower paced way, so that we don't create chaos in the world when people do actually find out what the truth is, because it has been kept from them for such a long time. But that's really brings me to my next question for you, Dani. What do you see as far as the official level of disclosure coming to the people? I know we're doing this with these types of talks that we have, but in terms of, the everyday person out in the world, when do you anticipate for that information to come out, for them to actually also have the awareness that we're not alone and that there's other life in the universe other than us?
And there's other life here as well. And if you look at the fact that in 1952, I think, there was a man who was known as Val Thor, or Valiant Thor, something else for your viewers to look up, because this is one of the most incredible physical evidences of an alien man working at the Pentagon level. And his name is Valiant Thor, or Val Thor, and he's from Venus, which again, I know how loony it sounds. Believe me, at one point, I was the person that was going, you've got to be having a laugh. He's from Venus, nut job. Oh my God, it's so true. Until you go and you look it up. There was a man in the Eisenhower administration called Val Thor, and the Pentagon complained because they couldn't control him, because he's a higher density being. He could pass through any physical structure. They couldn't contain him. And there are so many stories to that end, and there's physical photographic evidence. But Val Thor came at that time to help the American government roll out the reality of and give us the advanced technology that we had to help our planet advance a couple of 100 years minimum to where we are right now. We'd be flying planes. We would not be launching rockets. The governments made there's two names. There was an administration. They call them MJ12 or Majority 12 or Majestic 12. Doesn't matter really. It was just a bunch of complete tossers who decided to make an agreement behind Dwight Eisenhower's back, signed, I think it was called the Griada. It doesn't matter. This is where people go, it was called this. Who cares? Go look it up and go prove for yourself. Don't correct me. I am sharing information as quickly as I can in the time that we have, and they made an arrangement, but they took power. They kept, so when the world is going to go bananas with rage, not fear, when they find out what the supposed elite, I like to call them the deletes because they're getting deleted, the Illuminati, the dark ones, the soulless ones, and also for something very important. As we are in this time, disclosure's rolling out. It's rolling out. You got big gobs like me on the planet. You got you girls now out there. It is rolling out, and we have to acknowledge that none of the systems are separate. Governments, banking, education, medical, every single labeled item of authority on our planet is run by corrupt, soulless people. Of course, there's beautiful people, but this is what happens. They hide the lovely ones and they put the lovely ones out front. Oh, she's so nice. And they're the ones behind working the systems for their advantage. Exactly. They're the puppeteers. My thing is, don't tell me who you are. Show me who you are. If you really are a good person and you're going to take care of the people, that's your job, by the way. I have a saying too, if there's one cold, one hungry, or one homeless person on our planet, then that particular government, whether it's at a local level or a senior level, they're not doing their job, which means they're not fit for purpose, which means they shouldn't be in that job. And if they dare say there's no money, well, what have you done with it? They always say, well, the last group left us in shit. No, they didn't, because you were in power before them and you left them a mess. Stop passing the buck. They're just not fit for purpose. They're incompetence, all of them. I'm about to go off on the British government on my channel, and the way it's just enough now. We have to tell them all. And it's the women doing it. We're sitting their asses down. We're saying, you silly boy, sit down and shut up. We're going to carry on from here because you just done it all wrong. That's why we all have to do our individual study, really look and do the mapping and do the asking and follow the money and all the rest of it. But every single system has a corruption level at some point, and they don't care about us. They don't care if we live or we die.
Well, I've always said 2 words that should never go together is career and politician. It should never be a career. It should just be a volunteer job. It shouldn't even be paid. You should be doing it out of the kindness of your heart, and it's because something you're drawn to help the people, not because you want a paycheck and not because it gives you power. Okay, so bringing it all the way back to the ETs, because that's my favorite thing to talk about. I do understand that there are ETs that live among us. So that's one concept. But separate from that, the ones that we would probably traditionally look at as non-humanoid ETs, when do you think we might start seeing them actually appear to us? I know that we're starting to see more in the skies these days, but actually physically bringing themselves out to show themselves to us.
There are so many that are already here, and they look exactly like you and me.
That's a hard thing to think about. That's a hard one to wrap our brain around. And also, like, can we tell? Can we tell the difference? Like, what do they look like? How can we know? Like, I've heard once before, somebody a long time ago said, if you think it's an ET, like in your brain, just whisper the words, again, not out loud, but in your brain, say, I know you're an ET. And if the person turns around and looks at you, it means that they are, because they actually heard you say that in your.
For real believes that, because we were at Contact in the Desert and she goes, okay, I want you to go behind somebody. If you think you see somebody that you even think is an ET, you got to tell me so I can go and see. And she's like, and then if you're behind somebody, you should think it. And if they turn, you got to tell me. It was so funny. I go, okay. And I'm all like sort of new on that level. I'm like, now I'm afraid I'm going to see an ET at Contact in the Desert because she's convinced we're going to see one.
Right. Well, the first thing about extraterrestrials from off planet, because there are some that, they're here, they live in different places, which is probably too much to get into now, but let me give you the quick answer.
Okay.
Each human that is birthed on this planet is in frequency resonance with the Schumann frequency, the Schumann resonance. So we pulse with the Schumann resonance. But the ETs that don't live and weren't birthed through a birth canal on this planet, they don't. Their frequency is different. They're different. And so and everyone can do it. People say, oh, I'm not very spiritual. Let go of that. People tell themselves all the time, just let it go, because this is how you can really trust and test how brilliant every single human being is. We are amazing. We just need a few keys. We just need a few little how-tos. And so when you know that they're going to be pulsing differently, they're going to be frequencing differently. You can sometimes, those of us that are clairvoyant, you can see a light, you can see something in their field, but mostly you will feel it. It's just a different pulsing. Last 2022, I was running my conference, Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection, and Elena Danan and I were jumping in the lift. And as we got in, this couple jumped in with us. And they looked across between a policeman, a security guard, or, a naval officer. The girl was, I'd say she's in a kind of like late 30s, early 40s. She had like brown curly hair, white girl, beautiful blue eyes, quite stocky, over 6 foot. And she had like a navy blue jacket on when I couldn't work out how to use security, because I'd hired security privately for the event, which is what I do every year. And then the man with her, he looked like your typical German, tall, blonde, blue eyes, shaved head, a little bit longer on top, very similar attire to her. And she was wearing flat shoes. I remember thinking, she's so tall and she's wearing these flat shoes. And she jumped in it and she's like, Dani, we're so excited to meet you. Good job, guys. Good job. And she's shaking hands. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then he looked at her and he telepathed an instruction. And she went, oh, like that. And I look at Elena, who's a full-blown ET, and Elena's telepathing with this lady. And I'm like, no. This is so exciting. Anyway, so they left. We got off, or they left on their floor. And she went, I looked at her and went, oh my God. She went, yeah, they're from the Federation, the Galactic Federation of Worlds, in physical humanoid form, right there in the lift with us, shaking hands with us. There's just one example. And every year at our conference, they come, they are there. The UFOs come, different crafts come. There are different anomalies happening all of the time. It's unbelievable. The new technology that we're highlighting this year, off the charts. We haven't got time to wait for the government to say, well, when the Hubble telescope brings back a microbial portion, it might mean life on Mars. Shut up, NASA, you flipping liars. There's military bases on Mars. There's military bases on the moon. We never stop going to the moon. It is a disgusting lie and a cover-up, and I can prove it. There, how about that as a statement? I'm telling you where to go, where to look, who to look at.
Yeah.
You know, that they had to put the James Webb telescope up. They had to do something, you know, to show an advancement in space exploration, NASA. You know, it's like, oh my God, stop. Tony Rodriguez, another speaker, another friend, he was taken by an Illuminati satanic worshipping family. He was abducted. He spent, it's called 20 and Back secret space programs, of which there are many all over the world. And I've got two in particular, secret space program soldiers, one from France who told us all about the Solaris. His name is Jean-Charles Moyen, and Tony Rodriguez, from the American military that was kidnapped by the American military, who were in bed with the satanics. Not all of them, of course, not all of them. That is silly. It's not a blanket statement. There are sectors of a dark shadow government, a shadow military, and anyone who ever thought that occult magic, black magic, spelling, magic with a K, you think that ancient sorcery went underground? It's never been more prevalent. And the military is jammed full of witches and warlocks. Now, I know for anyone hearing that for the first time, you'd be like, stop. Let me give you a person's name. In fact, I will send it to you. So you can put a 3-part series, audio series, from a man who was born into a military satanic family. And his name was Collins. Collins is a long-term family with a lot of links. Not all the Collins, of course, but this particular family came from England and infiltrated the American military. And he turned from being a satanic witch, well, warlock. The men are the warlocks, the women are the witches. So you have male witches too, but the warlocks generally are the males. And he found Jesus and he turned the extreme. Now, he recorded in the 70s, and I've got those recordings. I mean, they're online. You can look them up. He said something like John Todd, former witch, ex-witch, satanic witch. They're there. But I can also send you the link as well because it's there. It's out there. Anyone can get it. Now, I personally, I don't believe in all of the insane parts of, to me, the too much of the religious bit. You got, Jesus won't forgive you. And it's not about, Jesus is a really nice man, a really beautiful, advanced human, very advanced. He was born awake. He was a born fully realized, self-realized individual. His message was to get us to become self-realized. Why do you think there are so many ETs on craft, the Galactic Federation of Worlds, monitoring? They're not going to land and save us. We have to save ourselves. They're helping us. They've been helping us a lot. They have protected us from so much, from direct attacks on many levels. But Jesus's message was to tell us that we are the most amazing beings. And the reason why the ETs, some of them find us so fascinating, is because we possess way more ability, in areas that they don't. They don't. They can't believe us. They can't believe how we can emote such emotion. We can go from crying on the floor to sobbing to wanting to not be here to suddenly being in euphoric states. Like, we are incredible bioorganic technology, and we are here to really fully realize we don't need the intermediary in the middle. That is a horrific enslavement program. People, especially a Catholic mind, God love them, they've been so lied to, putting the Vatican in the way and a pope here and a pope there. They're going to be so devastated when they find out what actually goes on there, what's been happening. It's truly devastating.
For me personally, I'm daily being awakened with the honor of being in the presence of people like you. And we've had the guests that we've had on, and Tara has been doing this for quite some time and doing her research. It's just incredible. I feel honored. I feel blessed that I get to hear and be a part of this world. Talk to me about what is Ascension and the Great Awakening. Could you explain that to us, especially people like me who are now jumping into it?
Right. So I'll give you my understanding and my definition, because I do believe that ascension is an individual soul journey for each individual person. I truly believe that. So if you look at our planet, our beautiful planet, who's been in third density, we know from, a lot of different statements and, prophecies, whatever you want to call it, that Earth is ascending. And we live on a beautiful heavenly body. She's alive. Mother Earth is a living being. The souls, us souls, the soul in the body that animates this physical body, the soul that comes through a birth canal to land on the planet, to connect to the human resonance, which is the heartbeat of Mother Earth. We are in a soul contract with her. And when you think about it, it's kind of obvious, but unless we know the words to bring to mind, how would we ever put that together, really? This planet is ascending. She's physically moved from her mathematical access. She's physically moved. As she is upgrading, people say from third to fourth to fifth. We're not going to skip fourth. Anyone that tells you we're going straight to fifth, I'll be very wary of. So Mother Earth is shifting, and so we are being forced and dragged along with her. It's like she's getting the upgrades, the upper program. You can look at it like that, like when WordStar went to WordPerfect, went to Windows. You know what I mean? That's an easy way for some people to logically look at that. So it's happening on, she's ascending, being upgraded. We are being upgraded. So everything that we haven't healed, every harmful thought, every sadness, every scar, every rageful, inside the wounded children that we all are on a level, we are all being dragged along. And so it's beautiful to have these conversations, because it helps us understand that we're all in this together. No one above another, not a single person. I'm in awe of being with you two. It makes me so happy to sit with women or men, especially if they're good looking, but joking. Not really. But beautiful women who have a real desire and a passion to spread love, bring information, especially for our children. And for the adults with wounded children, we're all doing something because we feel compelled to. We've got a mission in a different way. Could be one person helping one person, or, someone like me, on my channel, like reaching as many as I can, running a conference and, to try and get the word out. So the ascension to me is Mother Earth is ascending. We're ascending with her. The old guard, the systemized, the weaponized systems that holding back and suppressing us as a humanity, the magic and the systems and the binding that they had over us as a planet, she is breaking through. If you imagine all these snap bands snapping, the magic they used is too weak, because there's way too much light on the planet now, and it doesn't matter what they do. There's no going back. That person that stole or can't find that money, a lot of the extremely wealthy, they're shitting themselves because they're not going to get off the planet. They're not going to get off the planet. There's a whole military faction right in our solar system. Anyone that tries to leave the planet, they're getting cornered. So a lot of them are building underground bunkers. I don't mean the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, which are a thing. I mean, they're very rich and wealthy elite. I met a man, Richard, San Diego, who builds these bunkers years ago. I did a blessing at his house, a house healing for him, like 15 years ago, before any of this information was out. He's a good guy, though. He's a good guy. But some of these arsewipes, they're the wealth stinking rich, like gazillionaires, trillionaire status, because they know that when all the information comes out, we are coming for them all. We are going to round them up. It's like 5 of them compared to 500 million of us. That's the ridiculousness. A handful of fetid turds have been running our countries, our world, and they know their time is up, and it's like a dog with diarrhea running and shitting and skidding everywhere. That's what they're doing. So you might want to check that person that can't find that money. Has he put it into his bunker for him and his friends? Do you know what I mean? I mean, I'm half joking, but I'm actually serious, because I know for a fact this is what's been happening too.
Well, I think everything you've shared today has just been amazing and eye-opening for a lot of people, I'm sure, especially Tracy. But Dani, just as we're wrapping up, can you share with us just about your Galactic Spiritual Informers Conference? I know that's coming up soon. And tell us where we can go to find tickets for that, what to expect for that conference, and also where we can find your book as well.
Okay. Well, the book's the easy one. You can just get it on Amazon. Sorry. But, they make it to the point where you can't go anywhere else. So my book's on Amazon, Angels, Demons, and Aliens. And this is the book full of my experiences, some of which I've shared here today. And so that's that. So see my name there, Dani Henderson at the bottom. See that GSIC? That stands for Galactic Spiritual, because we're taking back our galactic heritage. And a lot of us are galactic DNA, from other lifetimes. We've come through a canal to birth on this planet because we're here to kick ass, take names, and take our planet back. So Galactic Spiritual Informers, we're informing. It isn't just the speakers, it's the people that come. Everyone is so important. No one above another. I always say that. And I say my planet, your planet, our planet, right? So we're informing the audience and meeting their star families. They're connecting to other widows and black sheep, and it's fantastic. I was a weirdo my whole life, apparently, because I always had this knowledge and nobody believed me. But now you can sit with someone and say, well, I saw the most beautiful Pleiadian last night. And the person next to you is going to say, yeah, me too. And both of you are going to know you're telling the truth. No one's going to have to try and convince anyone at this conference. It's galacticspiritualinformers.com. That's the website, galacticspiritualinformers.com. It is going to have the most incredible world leaders in their field. We've got world first. We've got JP, an Army insider, as part of Space Force and Space Command, coming out on stage for the first time in the world. And the high senior military personnel are allowing it. He's come every year, but he's always hiding. He can never show his face. But now we've got permission. We've got technology that at some point in all of our homes across the world we're going to be using, and it's called frill energy, and it is the natural universal frequency that is everywhere. And I mean, again, the people that I'm disparaging, the bad ones, they've held this from us. We should never have paid an electric bill. We should never have paid Wi-Fi. So this frill energy is going to be in our homes, these little units, a bit like my microphone, about that big, a crystal, and it's got silver and copper, and it's a Vogel crystal, and it resonates at a certain frequency and emits a piezoelectricity. I should probably come back and then share more intel, because I feel like I'm trying to jam too much in, and another broadcast to get to. But that is coming out on stage, another world first, an advancement on that intel. I can't even tell you. Dr. Michael Sarlet, Jean-Charles Mayenne, Tony Rodriguez, people I've spoken about, the French Solaris guy and Tony that was kidnapped by the Illuminati and the Satanics, Elena Danan from the Galactic Federation of Worlds. The Federation will be in the audience. Come see them, come feel them. The vendors are off the charts. I interview everybody. No one's getting in. No one's getting in unless I've met you and you're verified and your heart is in resonance with mine. And this is for the love of the people. So I'm really happy with all the different vendors and all their technology. It's September 27, 28, and 29 in a town in Colorado called Westminster. The nearest airport is Denver. Sorry about that. The nearest airport is Denver. And then we're a little town down the road called Westminster. We are in nature. It is the biggest sky spanse ever because I had to find a place that was beautiful in nature, with tons of bars and restaurants right there next to the hotel. But out the backside, it's just 10 miles of just landscape. You can go running, jogging. There's an amphitheater out there. We're going to be hanging out at night and calling in the craft. And they come every year to our conference. So I'm so excited for everyone to meet each other, hear the new information, connect. It's just going to be so beautiful. Galactic Spiritual Informers, 27 to 29 September of 2024. Come and be with us. You're meant to be at this event.
Well, we are planning to be there. So we are so excited. I know you have an amazing line of speakers lined up. So we cannot wait. These are all people I've watched for years and years. So cannot wait to actually see them in person. And we're really, really looking forward to it. So I would encourage everyone to check that out as well. And just as we wrap up here, Dani, can you just leave us with some final positive words of wisdom for anyone listening today?
I think one of the greatest things in terms of wisdom I can impart at this stage with you ladies and your beautiful audience is if anyone is channeling gray energy, anyone's telling you the grays are cute, if there's any gray connection whatsoever, run. This is as important as running from the Ouija board. There are people on platforms traveling the world channeling gray aliens. They are the cleverest, smartest, cunning, and they knew at such a time as this, they're not on the planet now, but they're using people. They've embedded programs in certain people, and those programs are switched on. They're called Trojan horses, and it is quite startling how many people are falling for the gray agenda. So be mindful, guys, be mindful, and no Ouija board. And ultimately, every single person without exception, even those that need a good beating, you know, like the people in government or whatever, unless they've sold their souls to the devil or they're reptilian or they're gray, you know, there's such a beauty in us, you know, more of those who are awake and kind, you know, the loving people, the good humans. Let me just focus on the good humans. You are going to come to know, if you don't know already, how absolutely, utterly beautiful and magnificent you truly are, that you have such value and you have such worth. And your voice matters. And I know it's tough, and I know it's bumpy, and I know we're all going through such an emotional roller coaster. And that's what the ascension is. It's going to throw you against the wall and down the stairs emotionally, and it's really tough. But hold on, friend, because you are loved, and you're returning to love. And at some point soon, you're going to witness the most beautiful shift on your planet. And it's happening now, and it's rolling out now. And it's opening up more and more, especially in these next 2 years, not in 2 years, now, 23 and 24, right this second. So have some hope, have some belief, and be kind to yourself.
Well, thank you so much for that positive message of encouragement, Dani. We really appreciate you sharing your time with us today and your knowledge and all of your experiences with us as well. So thank you. We wish you all the best and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me. And lots of love to your beautiful audience too.
Hi, Dani.